Hello! Welcome everybody to Twitch Tales, episode 38. Where did we leave off in the last episode? Well, in the last episode we had a date. Apis had a date with hey YouTube, it's going to be another great episode. It hopefully is. Let me turn on all my spells, which I forgot to turn on before. Ooh, look at these, level 2 spells. Ooh. We had a date with the hunting shop owner and operator, Sam, and we went to we got washed up. We went to the wash house. We talked about Apis's lack of spare clothes in their inventory, and decided that they probably have like two changes of clothes. Maybe they have their clothes that they wear, and then one clean clothes for when they're washing this other pair. One for being in the wash, and the other for actively wearing. So the Apis got changed into the nicer option of those set of clothes, and got some flowers from the PEA, the Pincampwyr and Amgylchedd, and then they went to the hunting spot, knocked on the little door, and Sam answered and said, "Right, where are we going for dinner then?" And you decided to take Sam to the eastern side of the town of Fondurg, up the mountainside a little bit, just to get the best view over the town and the far side forest for a romantic evening and a date. You went to a restaurant called the Peak Dining, where you had some venison and some mountain foods. You had a date, which was definitely a date. I won't say a good date. It's up to you guys to decide whether or not Apis thinks that this was a good date or not. Quantifiably, I was taking notes of all of the things that went right and all of the things that went wrong during the date, and it was kind of so-so. It just evened out, really. It was just, there was some awkward moments, there were some fun moments, and there were some not so good moments. So, a first date, generally. The dad jokes were winners, yeah. At the end of that date, you walked home through the town, walking Sam back to her place, and on the way you realised that you were being followed by a shady individual who tried to nip down an alleyway to cut you off, but rolled really poorly on their stealth check and bashed into some bins, which sent them flying and alerted you to their presence. And so you whipped out your hunting knife, and Sam, "That's not a knife," out-knifed you, got an even bigger knife out from under her dress, and between the two of you walking down the street holding hands with these huge knives out, you managed to scare this one would-be thief and mugger into thinking twice about attacking you. You made it home safely. You went back to the you took Sam back to her hunting lodge and saw her inside safely, and then you made your own way back into the Tattered Page, the library/tavern where you've been staying. And that's where we ended off, with you making your way back into your room, getting all of your equipment back together, and having a long rest, sitting down to rest for the evening. Is there anything that you guys would like to do as Apis as your sort of late night ablutions before bed? Anything that you want to do in the last half hour as you're unwinding from the date and getting ready for bed? Read your books, practice the panpipes, make sure your door is secure, pull a dresser over the door, etc. The door is locked. If you wish to make it extra, secure, you could pull your dresser in front of it, but it's not like you're in a particularly dodgy part of town, although you did see some criminals out in the streets, so maybe you'd want to be better safe than sorry. You want to remind yourself that dad jokes are not date material. Anxiously recall everything that went wrong on the date. Probably, yeah. Books, read your herbalism book. Have a small recap because of the date. Yeah. Better safe than sorry. Alright, so there's at least one anxious part of the mind that would rather keep themselves safe. So Apis drags the sort of phone table, as it were, in front of the door just for a little extra protection. during the night, and then sits down and falls asleep reading one of the herbalism books, essentially. As you're falling asleep, reading drifting in and out as your eyes drift across the words on the page. You're reading about the different areas that you can find, the different types of herbs that are used in potion brewing, and the different medicinal qualities of the various different herbs. And there's a particularly long named herb that you can find grows in bushels around a particular clump of trees out in the areas of the forest that are usually a little bit on the damp side, and you can feel yourself in that area of the forest, and you can feel the humidity on your face, and before you know it, you're actually standing in this forest, and there's a breeze across your face, and you're looking down at this bush, this bush of weeds, and trying to understand which parts of these weeds are the herbs that are good for medicinal qualities and which parts are just general forest refuse. When eventually there's a voice speaks out from behind you and says, "About time! Been waiting for you to get here." And you sort of, it's a moment or two after this voice speaks before you even realise that somebody's speaking to you, and suddenly you snap to attention and turn around to realise and turning around you see that there is a dwarf. He is built like a very stocky dwarf. He's built in the very dwarven way. He's unmistakably a dwarf, but he's over 5.5 feet tall, which would be tall for any dwarf that you've ever met. He is a very tall, huge dwarf, and he is adorned in a grass green 3-piece plant suit with a brown velvet top hat on with a sweet pea in the band of it. He's got a long rusty beard, and his hat is perched atop some long curls of auburn hair. And he repeats again, "Been waiting for you to arrive. You must have had a late night." And you try and remember how you got here and why it is that you're talking to this gentleman that you have met before. This gentleman with a somewhat merry disposition. He smiles at you and says, "Come on, let's walk. There's lots to discuss." You suddenly remember who it is that you're looking at. This is Diggin. This is an archfey that you've met before. The first time you met him, a lot of your memories were wiped from you before of that meeting. It wasn't until years later that you even remembered that you'd met him at all. You know that he's a very powerful individual, being that he's an archfey, goes without saying. But you also know that he wants something from you. Recently he sent an assistant, another fey creature, a little prankster, a cherub of sorts, to go and meet you and tell you that the gentleman wishes to speak with you, wishes something from you. A creature that you've later known to be called Bobby. So he turns and starts walking away from you with a nod of the head to follow him. And looking around, you're in a part of a forest that you don't recognise. What do you guys want to do? Follow him? So, you start to follow. As you follow, he says, "So why haven't you come to speak with me yet? I understand it's been... Well, it's hard to do the calculations quickly, but it's been like 2 months since I sent Ruprecht to meet with you." And I should mention as well, he's speaking to you in Dwarvish. "It's been about 2 months since I sent Ruprecht to meet with you. Obviously that won't feel like that to you. It's currently in a fey bias. So to you, it'll probably be like a week or something. Check that we have our essential equipment with us. You glance down at your shoulder, and you are adorned in the way that you usually are when you're out in a forest. You have your longbow over your shoulder. You have your rucksack over your shoulder as well. You have your quiver of arrows by your hip, and a long sword in a sheath on the other hip. You say, Ruprecht? He says, Ruprecht. Oh, maybe he give you a different name. You know who I'm talking about, though. My little assistant fella. My little friend. You say, Bobby? He goes, Bobby? Did he tell you Bobby? No, it was written on the outside of this box, and you slip the dice box from your pocket. He says, Right. So those are yours now. I was going to say, he hasn't used Bobby in a while. Not to the people of your plane, anyway. Call him what you like. Little shit works for a lot of people. So what do these do? You ask him. And he says, yes, that's between you and Bobby. That's not what I'm here to talk about. Listen, because it's Fey biased at the moment, I don't have a lot of time to talk with you. So let me get down to the point. And he kind of like gestures with his hand, and a bunch of the trees and undergrowth of this forest that you're walking through kind of just start moving themselves out of his way. And as he walks, they're just kind of, everything's parting to let him through, like Moses in the sea, only with him in the forest. Everything that can move is moving. The trees aren't uprooting themselves to get out of the way, but any branches that can move are moving out of his way. Any bushes that can flatten out are flattening out. As he walks forwards, he says, "So I need you to come meet with me, and I think Bobby told you as much. I've got something important to talk to you about. So where have you been? Why haven't you come yet?" You say, "That seems useful. Can you teach me that?" He says, "Aye, maybe. But it's you're a long way from that sort of power yet." You just abruptly say, "I didn't come see you because I had shit to do." And he sort of half turns over his shoulder as you're walking behind him, and he gives you a little sort of merry smile and says, "Aye, that's fair, I suppose. I didn't give you too much reason to come and meet with me." You say, it's not like I can come to the Feywild easily." And at that he stops and turns and says, "Really? A Horizon Walker telling me that they can't come to the Feywild easily? Have you not been practicing your powers?" What do you say to that? Have you not been practicing your powers? The first time that you met Diggin, it was because you had accidentally stepped into the Feywild while out on a camping trip without knowing even how you did it. You say, "I've not had anyone to teach me." He says, "What do you think I asked you to come and meet with me about then? I thought you'd jump at the chance to get taught by me. A lot of people would. It's not like we were born knowing how to use these powers. Horizon Walkers aren't exactly commonplace. Everybody I talk to has got no idea what they are. I've been lucky to find even a book about them." And Diggin says, "A book about them? You think you can learn what you need to learn from a book instead of getting out there and actually practicing? Have you not been practicing your powers?" was my question. Have you not been practicing your powers? You've stepped to the Feywild before. You've felt the presence of portals to the Feywild before, have you not? So why have you not been practicing them? Have you even stepped yet? I feel like the teacher's calling us out for not doing our homework. You say, "Well, I have been busy. We don't have 40 hours a day to practice." He says, "No, but you've got 24, and you spend most of them asleep." Granted, that's not really your problem. I'm used to working with elves. Speaking of which, do you mind if I change? Would that affect you too much? What do you mean? I'm not used to being this height. Would it bother you if I was to appear a little different? He said, no, go ahead. And as he said, no, go ahead, he sort of takes the rim of his hat and he sort of tips it to you in thanks. And then he starts to immediately just grow, even from already being like over 5'6" for a dwarf. He seems to grow, but it's almost like he's being stretched, because as he's growing in height, he's shrinking in width. He's going much less stocky and much less muscular around the upper torso. He shrinks down until he's a very lithe, very dexterous looking individual, standing at over 6 foot tall, probably about 6'6", until standing before you is almost elven in appearance, but if you turned elven features up to 11, he has the most pointed, angular face with that still manages to somehow be very attractive, and exceptionally long elven pointed ears that sort of droop down at the tips. His eyes are an emerald green, and his beard has entirely been absorbed back into his face until he has a very smooth, copper-skinned chin. He's still wearing the exact same plant green pantsuit, which didn't seem to change with him, but seemed to adapt to him. Almost like a living plant material regrowing and stretching around his body as his body itself changed. And then he sort of tips his hat and says, "Thank you. I much prefer my usual form." So, back on topic. You need to learn to step. That's your first lesson. The first time you did it was a fluke. It usually is for most Horizon Walkers. And you're lucky that it landed you in the Shadowfell or the Feywilds. He looks at his long, slender copper fingers as he talks to you, as if he's sort of just barely regarding you at all. You need to learn to step. I would say that you need to focus your attentions on that. Have you felt the energies? I can only explain how other people have described it, other Horizon Walkers. A sort of prickling feeling. Have you felt that? I'd love to learn, and I very much appreciate your offer of help. What's your schedule like? You give him a bit of sass, asking what his schedule's like to teach you. And he says, "If I tried to explain my schedule, I think it would be a lesson in itself. I don't believe you're familiar with the passage of time and the bias from different time shifts yet, so my schedule alone would be a week of lessons in itself. Needless to say, you need to learn to step first. Have you felt a prickling energy? Have you felt a sense of power within yourself when you're in a particularly dangerous situation? We felt some pull, but not quite sure what it was. I'd be honoured to have you teach us." He says, "Thank you. It's pleasant of you to say so." You notice that when you give him a compliment like that and say that we'd be honoured for you to teach us, he stops paying attention to his nails and his surroundings, and fixes you with a glare, and sort of smirks before seemingly that's what gets his attention. "Why do you care?" Again, if I was to explain why I care about your existence, Apis, it would require a great deal more time than I have right now. I need you to learn to step, so that then you can visit me. And once you've learned to visit me, then I can explain my interests in you and your family. He lets those words hang for a moment. Flattery will get us everywhere, apparently with an archfey, yes. You say, "Obviously, I don't remember the last time I visited you, so can you just tell me this? What do you get out of this deal, helping us learn of our powers?" He says, "I will explain all of that in due time. But basically, you would be very useful. A useful person for me to know. And I believe we have mutual benefit for one another." "What did you mean about my family?" And he says, again, you're asking wonderful questions, Apis. It's this sort of mind that attracts me to you in the first place. You have the right sort of inquisition. But I really am at a loss on time right now. It's already been about 7 hours or so of me waiting for you to arrive. I really wish you'd gone to sleep sooner. I tell you what. You spend the next few days focusing on trying to step. Get yourselves into dangerous situations if you need to. Whatever you need to do to feel that familiar prickle. And once you do so, focus on taking the raw energy of the universe, the force magic, and use that magic to try and cross the boundary, the meniscus of the material plane. Try and feel out for the existence of other planes in that moment, and take a step towards them. At this moment in time, that's about as best as I can explain to you. Oh, and also, I think we're being followed. Do you know this man? And he kind of gestures over your shoulder. And you look round, and I'm going to have you make a perception check. Oh, 19. That's good. 19 plus 2 from wisdom is a 21, plus 2 from perception, plus technically 2 because you're not really level 5 yet. Plus 2 from the skill being proficient in it. So that is a, 23. And then because you're in a forest, technically, that would be a 25 from your forest bonus. So with a 25, you spin around and look over your shoulder, and you can see that in the sort of natural parting of this forest material behind you as you've been walking with this guy, you see that there is a dark-clad individual, probably around 7 feet tall, but his form is hidden entirely underneath that of a dark, formless black cloak with a large hood over the top of it. You can't make out any body features at all, save for a face beneath the hood, which seems to be smirking in a porcelain ivory white mask. And as this featureless face smirks towards you from out of the darkness, you only just manage to glimpse it with your perception as high as it was, because this creature seems clad in shadow that seems to almost be oozing off of it like smoke. You turn around to tell Diggin that you do not know this man at all, this creature. And you say, I don't know him, isn't he with you? And as you turn to say this to Diggin, there is no Diggin there. You're alone in this forest. And you spin back to the creature that was there before, also gone, into the shadows. The darkness disappeared. You're alone in the forest. And that's where you stay. For hours. The path that was magically moved out of your way has reaffirmed its position once again in the forest, leaving you deep in the undergrowth in the forest. You know that you're still dreaming, but you can't wait. You just have to wait, in real time, in this forest, for the remainder of your night, sleeping and resting, knowing that your real body is safe in a bed somewhere, maybe even on another plane of existence. You try and focus on creating a portal. Nothing happens. You can try and sleep in the dream. We need to go deeper. Dream within a dream within a dream. We feel for that tingle to see if we can use it to wake up. You feel for it, but there's nothing. And you realise there's no sounds at all in this forest. Pinch yourself. You pinch yourself and it hurts. Play our panpipes. Reach down into the bag, grab your panpipes out. You give them a little tootle, and it seems to work fine. You pass your time in this forest, sleeping, waking, dreaming. until eventually back on the material plane you must be getting close to waking, because the forest starts to lose its focus, almost like it's failing to render. As you've been walking through this forest trying to find any semblance of a path or some way out of this endless, deep undergrowth, the trees are failing to appear in time before you step there, until eventually you reach the edge of where your mind can render this forest, and ahead is just grey, and the grey gets darker and darker in shades, until eventually it's black. And then you wake with a full recollection of every moment that passed in the night. What do you want to do? It is daytime. You are in the tattered page. You have woken up on the first day, which is, let me remind you, let me open up my timeline. It is the 6th of Altabris, and it is a 5th day. How do we feel? You feel rested. You feel energized. You feel a little bit concerned about the dark, shadowy, masked individual and your discussion with this merry gentleman, whoever he was. What does Apis know about these bone dice again? You know that they were given to you by a fey creature. Well, you found them, and by finding them, you seemed to summon the fey creature, who said, you found my dice. Well, they're your dice. They're your dice now, because of the rules of the fey. They belong to you. And you also know that they have some sort of divination abilities, but you're not exactly sure what. Let's try and see if we can bring the prickle on. Roll the dice, see what we find out about the figure. You could do if you wanted. Diggin can't say we didn't practice. Go out and practice stepping, I guess. Go pay for the room for however long it'll take to train. That's a good point. So, if your intention is to stay here and train just around Fondog, which I think it is because you're wanting to level up. This is your first day of leveling up. You're going to need to have a room here to pay for the night, to pay for the rest of your time here. I think I charged you 2 silver for a night before, and you've got another 4 nights of staying at least before you've fully leveled up. So I'll call it 10 silver just for pay for 5 nights, just to overpay. 10 silver is 1 gold, so I'll just mark off 1 gold piece, and you've paid in advance for 5 nights stay at the 5 future nights stay in the tattered page. So on your way back from speaking with the receptionist of the tattered page, you speak with Mel. You inform her of her of your dreams, and she says that she also had a strange dream. It wasn't as weird as yours. She didn't speak to anyone in it, but she was just flying over a forest, speaking with more and more of the insects in the forest, and getting more familiar with the different types of insect that there are in the forest. We had thought about doing something counter the dragon's poison by talking to people and getting them to look into it. Can we visit the mayor and ask him to organise a meeting later in the day with us, the mayor, Sam, a representative of the P8s, and the Arcanists to discover capture live hybrids, milk them for their poison? All of that stuff sounds like not level up. So, important to know is the 5 days of level up time have to be focused entirely on leveling up. You have to be practicing your stuff. So if you want to do any of that Batmerp, that will delay the actual level up time. It all sounds like very good ideas, but it's not what you can do on a level up. So today, your day has to be focusing on leveling up. So you can be training your archery, trying to get that extra attack. You can be focusing on that prickle that Merry Gentleman was telling you about, trying to learn how to step, putting yourself in danger or something, and to get that danger prickle. For anyone who's new to us or new to the episode, the prickle the prickle he was referring to was you have felt it before. You usually feel it when adrenaline happens, when you're in the middle of a fight and you feel this sort of, your hair stands on end, almost like you're in an electrically charged cloud. And you feel like this static electricity is storing up in your body, and when you feel that, that's when you can usually plane a warrior and use your Horizon Stepper ability to do extra damage with your bow and arrow. Let's head out into the forest and follow the gentleman's advice to find some mildly dangerous situations. All right. So you have your breakfast and such. You head back in. You head into the forest for the day, and you spend the day hunting. You spend the day hunting, but not specifically for any food or anything. You've got plenty of rations, and you can restock that and help yourself to some free breakfast that the nature provides for you. Staying away from the Lannis Woods, you instead hunt south of Fondurg in the outer reaches of the Giftegald Forest, around where Briar lives, in that area that you know to be probably a little more safe than the Lannis Woods right now. And you go and hunt out some larger creatures, something like a boar that can do some damage to you if you're not careful. Apis knows firsthand that boars can be quite dangerous, even if they're not dragon boars. They can still be very dangerous creatures to hunt. So Apis goes and puts themselves into a mildly dangerous situation, but one that they know that they could survive as long as they keep their wits about them. And you practice. You try and conjure that prickling sensation that comes from getting yourself in an adrenaline-fueled situation. I'm going to roll a wisdom check for you. Just straight wisdom check, no forest bonus. 17 plus 2 wisdom, 19. So you get yourself into a situation where you're close to a boar. You put your bow and arrow away, and you just focus. As this boar has noticed your presence, and as a wild creature you're encroaching on its territory, it feels like it's threatened. You can tell with your animal handling, you can tell from its body language that this is a dangerous situation, because without a weapon in hand, this boar could run at you and gore you. And you breathe, and you put your hands out away from your weapons, and you know that you're making yourself intimidating to it, so it's going to either run or attack you. And you read its body language, and at one point you can feel that this thing is going to attack you. And as it charges towards you, you know you have to get out of the way. And you feel this adrenaline start to spike and start to prickle all over your body. And then I'm going to need a dexterity saving throw. A 10 plus your 3, plus a proficiency of 2, because you're still technically not level 5 yet. So that's a 15. With a 15, you manage to dive out of the way of the boar as it comes goring towards you. You don't get impaled on it. But you also didn't manage to step out of the way. You weren't sure exactly what to do. You just put yourself in a dangerous situation and tried to step into a different plane of existence, which you have no reference for how to do. You just felt the energy. You felt the force, the creative blocks, the creative magic of the universe. You can definitely feel your access to that with a high enough wisdom check there, but you don't yet know how to harness it. You do this a couple more times. You sort of give that boar a bit of space, and then come back again and try and do it again. Ultimately, no connection. You are making a connection to the energy that you're feeling when you're playing a warrior. You know that if you were hunting this boar, you could do a lot more damage to it. You could send your arrow into the ethereal plane temporarily, summon it back into the material plane when it hits, and do more damage that way, force damage. But ultimately, you don't know how to use that same effect on yourself to force yourself into another plane of existence. You just know how to do it to an arrow that you fire, or even a sword that you wield. Eventually you leave that boar alone and you decide to go and practice some arrow hunting instead, practicing your quick draw. You can definitively tell the merry gentleman that you have practiced a little bit now. You've practiced for a few hours this morning and afternoon. But eventually it just gets too much, and you've taken a little bit of damage from the boars getting a little too close and goring you, and it's just not happening. So you decide to go leave it alone, bandage your minor wounds, and practice some quick drawing archery instead. Can we think carefully back to when we did it accidentally in the forest with Lakara? Would there be any hints hidden in our memories? You certainly can do, yeah. Let's roll an intelligence check, see what you remember from that day, that fateful night. Intelligence check, that would be a 13. You can recall the situation was that you felt like you were in danger, and that you were endangering Lakara by you choosing to camp out here in this Diggins Temple, as it was called, this particularly quiet and dark part of the forest. And so you went out looking for this danger to eliminate it before it became a threat to your friend. And putting yourself out there, especially as a much younger dwarf then, in the equivalent of your teenage years, you temporarily were overcome by your nerves and your fear. And then the next thing you remember is that you were surrounded by a dull, dreary, colourless, grey landscape of trees. Everything had been desaturated. And turning around to go back to Lucara, it wasn't long before everything again was turned entirely the opposite way, where everything became hyper colourful and bright and saturated and vibrant and lively. And the creatures around you were horned. As to how you did it, you have no idea, other than the fact that you were feeling that same prickling danger sense around your skin. Can we invite Sam to hunt with us on one of the next few days? Sounds a bit reluctant about it when we asked, but it would be awesome to know her better, and maybe it would be less awkward if we have something else to talk to. Yeah, we could ask Sam. I don't think that would break our leveling up abilities. She is a hunter and she could help us hunt, as long as the focus of our date were us practicing our quick drawing and stuff like that. What you would know as Apis is that it is currently Fifth Day, which means that Saturday is tomorrow. Saturday is like the penultimate day of the week, and Sinterday is the one day of the week that is the weekend, the day of levity, the day of joy, the day of fun, the day of not working. Think of it like the Sabbath, I guess, where people are religiously expected to not work on the Sinterday. So Fifth Day, Saturday, Sinterday, and then back to the start of the week, Fin Day. So she would be working at her hunting shop on every day but Sinterday. So 2 days from now, she could have a day off, and you could go hunting together all day then. We could go and ask her tomorrow for the day after. Yeah, we can ask her tomorrow. Once we get back to town, we can go and rest and everything, and then tomorrow we can ask her, say, hey, what are you doing tomorrow? So day one passes with us practicing our connection to the tingling sensation that comes when we're in danger. It also comes with us feeling the energies of the universe, trying to focus that energy into an ethereal form so that we can do more damage on our weapons. And as much as we've now gotten pretty proficient at doing that when we want to play in a warrior, we're trying to focus that energy into our entire person to somehow step into another plane of existence. We spend a lot of time today on that. We spend some time on trying to quick draw. We probably, with them being well-made arrows, we don't lose any or break any. They're well-made and sturdy. They've got +1 masterwork to them, so we don't break any arrows or anything. The day passes without any incident. Can we try using planar on our fist instead of our weapons, just our fist? Yeah, I think we probably could. Let me actually just check that real quick. Let me just open up D&D Beyond and check Ranger, because there might be the tag word of weapon attack. Next time you attack with a weapon on this turn, blah blah blah. And technically speaking, in terms of like tag words in D&D, your fists are not counted as weapons. I tend to rule that fists are weapons for monks because they're martial artists and their unarmed attacks tend to be very weapon-like. But for other classes, and I tend not to. So let me just double check the wording of it. As a bonus action, choose one creature you can see. The next time you hit that creature on this turn with a weapon attack, all damage dealt by this attack becomes force damage. So do I want to allow planar warrior on an unarmed strike? Choices. Rules as written, no, because your fists don't count as a weapon attack. Do I think it will break anything to allow that? I'm leaning towards no. It doesn't feel right, so I'm just going to trust my gut on this, and I'm going to say no. It feels, when I think about that question for a monk, it feels right to allow them to be considered weapon attacks. For some reason, my brain's telling me that it doesn't feel right to allow this for a ranger. So you try to conjure this planar warrior and then attack something with your fist attack, but that you just don't. You can't get this prickling sensation, this magical sensation, out of your body and into a weapon in the same way as you normally do when you're holding this weapon. And so it doesn't have a conduit. It doesn't have a focus point for this energy to go. And you try and make your fist the focus point, but your fist is like the battery that's charging this power, not the actual point of contact of the power, and it's just not working for you. You do wonder if perhaps you had a ring or some brass knuckles or something that then you could use then the power would have something to focus into, a point of amalgamation that you could thrust forwards. Maybe if you had a ring, it might work. And you make a little note to yourself to maybe get a ring before tomorrow's training. The key from the hotel door. It's a good point. Yeah, you get an improvised weapon, which would be a key, and because it's now an improvised weapon, it is still a weapon attack. So you grab the key and you put it between your fingers, and you have to focus on a creature for planar warrior to work. So for this to work, you'd have to like punch a creature with a hotel key, and not break your key, because then you can't get into your room that you've paid for 5 nights for. We do have a ring in our inventory, do we? Do we? Where is it? Ah, yeah, there it is, underneath panpipes. You do have a ring. There you go. We do actually have a ring in the inventory. So using the hotel key or the ring as improvised weapons, you try again during the day to get yourself into a dangerous situation. You go unarmed except for a key in one hand and a ring in the other, and you go up against one of these boars, and you get yourself into a situation where this boar is threatened and charging you, and you feel that prickle, and you summon it forwards, and as the boar gets close enough to gore you, BAM! You smack this boar in the side of the head with this key in one hand, following it round with a bonus action strike from the other side, and you crack the boar with this planar warrior, summon the energy into the key and the ring, and you've definitely got the connection to planar warrior nicely tied to your body, and you've now gotten it much closer than firing an arrow. You see the ethereal nature of the key does seem to transport into your fist and up the arm somewhat before the point of contact. At that point of contact, your fist seems to almost merge with the outer skin of the boar, and then all of a sudden you feel like an intense pins and needles, like pins and needles turned times 10. It's just the most intense prickling feeling, not only on your skin but deep within your muscles and even the bone, as your hand goes back from the ethereal plane back into the material plane in the instant that this force hits the side of the pig, dealing extra damage on top of your strength and unarmed damage. It deals this extra planar force damage to the pig, which knocks it to the side, and then you follow up with the ring and the same feeling on the other hand as you planar warrior into the side of this pig. The pig squeals and goes lifeless before too many more pummeling attacks. And you have hunted a pig with your bare hands, which is pretty badass for a hunter to do. And thankfully for Apus's tendencies to not want to put animals in danger, you did manage to humanely kill this. With the first punch, you knocked it out. It squealed once as the right hook hit its side of its head, and the next 1-2 punches were enough to actually make sure that it didn't wake up from that concussion. It probably hurt you as well. You probably took a couple more points of damage to your fists of punching the side of this animal's skull. But you now have a pig, and Apus, being waste not want not type of person, takes a moment to sit down and focus on what it felt like to have a part of your body in the ethereal plane for an instant, what that prickling sensation on your skin felt like. And how to transport that to the rest of your body, you're not sure. But maybe in time, with enough practice, you'll manage it. You're starting to lose the light at this point, so you firemen's lift this pig up onto the back of your shoulders, and you march back into town. Take the moment to thank the boar for helping us. Yep, you respectfully grant the boar your appreciation for its life, so that yours may continue. And you take the boar back to the town. You can sell it to the butcher, probably. Is there a soup kitchen we could offer the boar to? Yes, there is. What do you want to do with this? We punched a pig to death. Yeah. 1-2 punch. Bam bam. Thank Altamez for the hunt. Yes, we also pay a little respect to the god Altamez, who provides us our hunter's mark ability, the god of the hunt. Would you like to sell the pig, donate the pig, give it to the inn? What would you like to do with this pig? Give it to those who more needed without payment? There is a town of this size. Yeah, a town of this size probably would have a soup kitchen, yeah. Yes, they do in fact, yeah. Thinking about it. Always helping where we can. Donate the pig. We help those in need. All right, so most of you saying give it to donate it to a soup kitchen. So you find a soup kitchen in Fonderg, and you donate the pig, and they're very, very grateful for your help, and they take your name, and they're flabbergasted that a hunter with your skill that they don't even know about. You've just come in from out of town. You've hunted a pig and you've just donated it to them, which is a significant amount of money, and a lot of homeless people and orphans will be very grateful for eating well tonight with some actual decent chunks of meat, not just bread and soup. Yeah, they're going to eat well tonight. There's a lot of people that would survive on a soup kitchen in a town of this size, so that you've done a very good thing for the world. If you weren't already good aligned, that would be a tick towards becoming a good aligned creature, but you're already a neutral good person. And then you head back to the tattered page and rest for the evening, and that was day 1 of training complete. As you wash up, you bathe, you wash the bloody marks off of your body, you check the bandages on your legs from the slight gore wounds that you suffered this morning, and you realise that they've mostly scabbed over already. There's not a lot of damage, it was mostly surface skin damage. You clean yourself off and you get into bed, and you fall asleep before too long because it's been quite an exhausting day. A prickle of cold runs down your spine, and the hair on your neck stands up. Instantly you're thrust into fight or flight mode, and your eyes dash from shadow to shadow, looking for the threat that must have caused your body to react in this way. There's a soft whisper of air behind you that has you spinning, just in time to see the hem of a black robe disappearing behind a tree. But nothing emerges from the other side of the tree. Then you spin back around, and standing in the middle of the ring of trees where no one had been before, only a second before, you see the same ivory-masked figure, with their body hidden beneath formless robes, a hood obscuring all but that smirking mask. Behind the figure you can see several creeping shadows looming forwards towards it from the other side of this clearing, and momentarily they resemble the ones that you recently fought in Shadridge. As they slither towards over the forest floor towards the figure, you say, "Who are you? Show yourself." But all that this figure says in response is a deep, drawling inhalation as it starts to grow in form until it's about 10 feet tall. As it grows in stature, the shadows are drawn towards it like iron filings to a magnet, and as the shadows reach the hem of its robes, the darkness around it seems to overwhelm and encompass it entirely, dulling the swishing of the fabric down to a silence, and rendering the entire figure indistinguishable from the background in the darkness of the forest around him. He's entirely in darkness, indistinguishable except for a smiling ivory mask, which a pale hand reaches up out of the darkness to grasp a hold of and pull off. And as the mask comes away, it just leaves behind darkness that blends into the darkness behind. And the ivory mask itself dissipates into blackness. And you wake up the next morning immediately, as if you'd only just gone to sleep. But you wake up on day 2. If it's bigger, it's easier to hit. You ever been punched with a key? So what do you want to do on day 2? This is now Saturday. Saturday is the last day of work. It is named after Saturn? No. I regret starting that sentence now because I can't remember who the day is named after. Can't remember which of my gods the day is named after. Day of cleanliness, the god of cleanliness, I think, but it doesn't matter. What do you want to do on your day 2? Practice the tingling once more. You wanted to ask Sam if she wants to hunt with you tomorrow, right? So you head off after breakfast and your ablutions and things. You head to the hunting spot and you speak with Sam and ask her if she wants to if she has time to go hunting with you tomorrow. I'm going to go with a persuasion check with you because the date wasn't the best date, but it obviously wasn't the worst either. It was just a middling kind of a date. It's not going to be with advantage or disadvantage. It's just a straight roll of a persuasion check. 19. Rolling well on this dice. These dice tend to roll well for Apis, don't they? These green sparklies. 19 plus 1 from charisma. A dirty 20. So you ask her, I'm not going to roleplay the whole thing because we're in the middle of sort of leveling up. But you ask Sam out on another date, essentially, tomorrow, a day date this time, to see if she would want to go hunting with you again, since she mentioned on the date that it's been a long time since she's been hunting. And she agrees. She says, yeah, it would be nice to get out again and explore a little more, as long as we don't go too deep into the woods, she says. You ask her about whether she's okay after the encounter on the way home, and she says, "Yeah, it was fine. I sorry I acted the way I did. I got a little shook up. It's not the first time. It wouldn't have been the first time that I've been mugged in this town. The thieves are a little they can be a little aggressive after dark." So she says she tends not to go out as late as or stay out as late as she was when you were out. And then after that little encounter, she says she has to get back to work, and you head off back out into the forest to practice again with your practice. As you hunt for some way of putting yourself in danger again, knowing that you don't really necessarily want to punch an animal to death again, you try and focus on this tingling sensation. You get yourself into a precarious situation, this time in danger of a terrain difficulty rather than an animal encounter. You get yourself to the edge of somewhere high, a sort of a landslidey, a potential for a landslide. Somewhere where if you weren't careful, you could take a wrong step and tumble down these trees and potentially hurt yourself badly on the trees on the way down this rather steep hill. And then you close your eyes and start to walk down this steep hill. And doing so, your body immediately calls out for you to open your eyes again because you're endangering yourself needlessly. And with that danger immediately starts to come that prickling sensation again up the back of your neck, this fight or flight response. And you use that and you try and attune to it. You try and capture that essence. I'm going to roll another wisdom check for you. A 3 plus your wisdom of 2 plus your it's not anything, is it? Forest bonus? No, not forest bonus either. So 3 plus wisdom of 2, that's only a 5. You can horseshoe if you want. You can horseshoe or you can inspiration. So most people saying no, we're not going to re-roll it. So Apis steps forwards, trying to attune to this prickling sensation, but they just can't bring themselves to use that in this moment. They've had too many near misses, stumbling down hills in the forest, miles from anywhere, and the last thing Apis wants to do is get impaled by a sharp branch at the bottom of a hill and be too far away to actually crawl back to the village, the town. And so Apis fails in this morning's training. They fail to bring themselves to trust in this sensation and step through the prickles, through the pins and needles, and into another plane of existence. Apis does, however, in their practice, in their morning, in their whole day of trying to work out what's going on with this sensation and their frustration at not knowing what they're even meant to be practicing. Apis does feel a cold prickle, a different sense of prickle running down their spine, as if they're being watched from the shadows. And spinning round, Apis sees no shadowy creature, no shadowy moment, but they are very well reminded of the dream that they had last night, where they were met by some shadowy, masked individual. I'm just going to roll a check real quick for you. This will be a +3. 13. With a 13 religion check, Apis feels like the sort of dream that they had last night was different from the sort of dream they had the night before. The night before they could talk, they had will, they could interact with the dream. And furthermore, when they were left in the dream, they couldn't end it voluntarily. But last night's felt more like you were just following a cutscene. You had something going on for you that you couldn't interact with. It's like something else was trying to talk to you, not the merry gentleman. This last night's felt like more like the sort of dreams you've had before when you appeased Altamez with your Sasquatch hunt. You have an inclination that perhaps last night's dream was something beyond trying to speak with you, trying to tell you something. And now you find yourself in a relatively dark forest, and the light of the day is getting lost, and the shadows are getting longer. Use protection from good and evil just before we go to sleep. Could do so. So, you head back to the village, head back to the town, Fonderg, and you go to sleep. It's not long into this dream before you find yourself standing by a river, a little babbling brook, winding its way through a forest clearing. And you can tell, before looking up, that someone's standing behind you. Bracing yourself to know which of the two figures it is, or whether it may be a third new one. You turn around, and you see sitting on a sort of curved log, the merry gentleman, twirling in his fingers a twig, a branch of wood, flicking it between his fingers like one might flick a pen. And he says, "So it's been a couple of hours. I thought I might check in. Have you made any progress?" What do you say? "Greetings, sir. You're looking dashing." He says, "Thank you. You're not too bad yourself." "It's been a couple of hours. It's been 2 days for us." He says, "Yes, well, that's what I mean when I say that it's material bias at the moment. I will explain more when you visit me. But basically, the time passes differently where I am and where you are." "Right. Well, I punched a pig to death." He genuinely laughs at that. It seems to catch him off guard. He says, Okay, that's not quite the training that I had in mind, but have you stepped yet?" "No. I'm feeling the prickle. I'm feeling the feeling that you're talking about, and I'm trying to focus on it. I just don't know what I'm doing." "Who is the other dude?" Is it the other dude? Oh, the shadowy one? He says, "Yeah, who is he?" He says, I have a suspicion I know who he is. "Have you had any luck with the stepping at all?" "I have failed a lot. I've been trying to focus it on something, but it's not working. You have to help me get my head around it. I don't think I get how it's supposed to work. I can only do it with objects, not myself. I can sense the prickles, but they don't go anywhere. I think you're Perhaps stepping is the wrong word for you to understand it. Yes, in fact, and he stands up, and as he stands up, the sort of curved log that he was standing on just like straightens up behind him, as if he'd just backed into a tree and the tree had accommodated him to make a seat for him. And now the tree goes back to its normal stature. He says, "Walk with me." And he sort of waves his hand again, and all these sort of forest moves out of his way as he walks. He says, if focusing on these pericles allows you to interact with objects and imbue the objects the power of the ethereal, perhaps that's a better way to come about it for you. Think not that you're stepping to a different place. Think not that you are stepping to a different area of the world, but more that you are moving the world towards you. That might help. It achieves the same goal, ultimately. But if your focus is on objects, I've had champions of your inclination before, where everything is about the other, and it's hard to understand it from your own perspective. Try that. Try it like you're bringing the world towards you, the area you want to go. Think of it like an area. You have to really focus on what it is that you're displacing from the area that you want to go, and replace yourself with that moment. Something about his words in thinking about what you're displacing in that area makes you think of the descriptions that Verin was telling you when he was telling you and teaching you Hunter's Mark, and you have to focus on being empathetic towards what the nature around the creature that you're Hunter's Marking is. What plants are they displacing by standing where they are? What air currents are being manipulated by their physical presence in that area? So this new way of thinking about it resonates with you, and you feel like that could be a way to focus your prickling energy to send it outwards, and not into a specific object, but into the world at large, and focus it on one particular area, an area of the world that you want to bring towards you. Right, moving the world. Thank you for your wise guidance. He says, well, it might work. I really am pushing my luck by being here, though. As I said already, hours for me are days for you. So I'm really overstaying my welcome. The shadowy individual. You're attracting quite a bit of attention. Your power is increasing exponentially, and will increase will continue to do so steadily. You need to get a handle on this Apis. I can be a teacher. I can be your mentor. Unfortunately, I have no need for champions right now. But if such a need arises, I think you would make a fine one. He says that, and then he waves his hand, and his body seems to turn to like a stone statue, which then seems to turn into like a plant-based statue, which immediately undergoes like a rapid transformation of decomposition, and his body just sort of like molds. It rots in front of you until this like grass statue is just left as a pile of mulch in front of you. I do really realise your effort here, and it's greatly appreciated. You say after him, it's greatly appreciated. Any chance you could give us guidance when I'm awake? Damn it. And he's gone. So, you find yourself left in the woods on your own. Or are you on your own? There's a lot of darkness around. These woods seem darker than they were before. There are a lot of shadows about. Eventually you see, staring out from behind one of the trees, you are looking into the darkness, and you realise after a while that the darkness was looking back with a smirking ivory mask. A hand reaches up to the mask and takes it off. You see the glimpse of two dark eyes surrounded with white sclera in a dark face of deceit. And then the darkness closes in around you, and everything goes silent and pitch black. And you feel like you're standing in that pitch black silence for over an hour before you wake. On day 3, Sinter Day, the day of rest. Perception checks on everyone we meet from this point. So you are on the day of rest, the day when Sam no longer has to work and was going to accompany you with you on a hunt to help you practice your quick drawing, help you practice your prickles. What do you want to do exactly? You want to go get Sam immediately? Get some breakfast first? Get Sam and then have breakfast? Have breakfast with Sam? Sure thing. So you go and pick up Sam from her place, and she's happy to see you. She's dressed very differently to how you have seen her dressed before. This time she's not wearing anything in the way of a feminine clothing. She's wearing very practical clothing that is not exactly cargo pants, but the medieval equivalent of cargo pants. She's wearing rather not, I don't want to say tight fitting because it's not like skin tight pants, but she's wearing stuff that won't get snagged on undergrowth. She's got large hunting boots on with wraps that go all the way up to her knee. She's got a thick sort of a Hessian material overcoat thing wrapped around with a thick belt around the waist. So many pockets, yes. She has quite the proficient hunter look about her when you pick her up, and her hair is tied up in a very neat bun at the back that's all very tucked away. Leg wraps for the win. Yep. So you pick her up. You take her out to have breakfast. What do you get? Breakfast at a restaurant before you go and actually pay for it, or do you want to just go out and hunt your breakfast? Bakery. Take rolls to go. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So you pop to a bakery and get let's say a silver piece worth of rolls, which is a decent amount of rolls for the two of you. You get some baked goods from a bakery on the way, and then you head out into the woods, and you have some general small talk chit chat on your way out into the forest, and you spend the most of the morning practicing quick draw with her, and she's particularly good at quick draw, it seems. She's not quite as good at the aim as you are. You're a much better aim. Your shots are clustered a lot closer together to one another. You're more consistent with your arrows, but she's much faster with them. She can shoot off almost twice as many arrows in the same amount of time as you can. So she's telling you a little bit about the techniques that she uses and what she thinks about when she's doing this. And for the most part of the day, you spend practicing that quick drawing ability. I'm gonna just roll a general charisma check to see how the day goes with the two of you. Net 1. Net 1. Does anyone want to re-roll that with inspiration or lucky horseshoe? But a yes or a no if you do or do not want to re-roll. Most people saying yes, re-roll that, but a few saying no's. We've got a few no's, but mostly yeses. So we're going to use our lucky horseshoe, which it recharges every morning anyway. To re-roll that charisma check and get an 11. 11 plus 1 charisma, so slightly above average. Again, there's some awkward tension and things. Small talk is a little on the lacking side, and there's a couple of jokes that don't go down well, but for the most part, it's an above average time together. Eventually, you come to towards the end of the day. Do you want to practice the prickling at all today, or is there anything else you want to do? You've only practiced your quick draw ability today. You have definitely improved. By the end of the day, you've definitely gotten faster with your. Are we practicing on wooden targets or game? Definitely wooden targets. Apis doesn't kill just for the sport. and it would be too much game to take back with you. So you might, like, towards the end of the day, you might genuinely hunt for an animal. Pass without trace. So as you're walking, trying to hunt, towards the end of the day, you decide. She says, "Are we going to actually hunt an animal now? I feel like we should take something back. It's been a while since I've killed something or eaten something that I've actually killed." And you say, "Sure, let's try and hunt." And you start your hunt together. You focus on on tracking down the animal, and then as you get close, she says, I can tell that there's a what's the collective noun of deer? Pack of deer, a herd of deer, whatever it is. She says there's a thing of deer nearby. I can tell that there's a herd of deer close by. I feel like venison tonight, but they're particularly perceptive. I've found they're easily spooked, so we need to be particularly quiet. And there's something about her mentioning that you need to be quiet that reminds you of the silence that you were forced into last night, the silence that you felt as this hooded, masked individual inhaled and sucked the shadows towards themselves. It seemed to encompass that silence with the darkness. I'm going to roll another religion check for you. 13 plus 3, 16. With a 16, you feel for the first time that perhaps this thing that's been visiting you in the dreams is trying to help you with this ability. It's trying to teach you something, maybe. It's doing so in a very creepy way, particularly with its tie to the shadows and the deceit and the deception. But it's trying to teach you something. You feel like whatever it is or whoever it is trying to help you with this ability to stealth in the shadows. And so you focus on that. You look around yourself. You feel that prickling sensation on the back of your neck as the hairs are standing up. And you can see the creeping shadows around you. You swear out of the corner of your eye you see the movement of a black cloak, but by the time you've looked that way, it's gone. I'm going to need a wisdom check. Ooh, 17 plus 2 is pretty good. With a 19, you get yourself into a position where you try and remember how this creature was standing the first time you saw it, when it first started to breathe in. And you inhale the way that it did. And almost imperceptibly, but definitely something that you can feel, if not Sam. You feel yourself get quieter. Even the throbbing of blood in your ears seems to dull. And you look around and you realise that you're slightly darker. You look down and you seem almost like camouflaged in shadow. Sam doesn't seem to have noticed the change. It's very subtle. But you walk forwards and the crunching of leaves under your feet seems deadened, almost. Quieter. It's still there, but it's definitely noticeable to you that you're moving quieter now. You get closer and closer to these deer. You can get closer than you probably would have expected you would be able to, before you draw back your bowstring, and even the subtle creaking of the bowstring seems not even there. It's like there's still the resistance of the bow, but there's no sound from it. You let the arrow go, and there's a sort of momentary confusion from Sam as she almost acknowledges that there was no sound from the bow being released. The arrow strikes right through the neck of one of the deer, and with the instant loss of blood pressure to its head as the as the blood starts to pump from its body. It goes down unconscious, feeling no more as the rest of the herd scatter. You start to acknowledge the fact that you have just allowed this darkness into yourself in a certain way, this darkness to overwhelm you and use it. And a part of you starts to wonder whether this is related to Sally and whether it was okay to allow it into yourself. And this panicking moment makes you lose concentration of what you were doing. And all at once the colour seems to come back to your skin, and things start to sound a little louder. You can hear yourself breathing and feel the blood pounding in your ears. Sam immediately goes over to the deer to start cleaning and gutting and preparing it in the way that she is very proficient in doing. As a long-time hunter, she wants to feel that sense of all of the aspects of a hunt that she hasn't felt for years. And between the two of you, you haul back this deer to the town. Get skinning tips from her. Yeah, you talk with her about how to skin, how to all sort of general survival tricks and tips. And you make your way back to the town. It is, as I said, an above-average date together. What do you want to do with this deer? She definitely wants to keep a good leg of it or two. She says she's got some family in town that would take some of it as well. But obviously you've had a huge part in taking it down, and so she wants you to have half of it if you want it. Let her keep it all. All right. So you say no, it's fine. You can have the whole thing. Distribute it as you see fit. And so she does so. Running a hunting shop, she knows several people who would happily take it. Will she offer to cook it? If you ask her such, yes. Let's make a persuasion check. See if you can politely ask her to cook it for you. 16 plus 1, that is enough, yes. So with a 17, you manage to politely ask her, would you cook it? And she offers, yeah, you killed it. It's been a fun day. Least I can do is prepare it, and we'll have some venison together. And you spend the evening together. You eat a venison meal, home cooked venison dinner. You get to see where she lives upstairs from the hunting spot. We could sell a bit of the coming up hunt for a bit of a coin. That is true. You could definitely sell it to a butcher if you were so inclined. Have some of the deer for dinner. Go collect some wine, perhaps. Yeah, you could get some wine. Yeah. I'll tell you what we do then. We take a leg of the venison to the butchers before they close. We sell it, and we use the money that we sell that for to buy some wine, and then we have that with the dinner, just so we don't have to fork out any money for dinner. And then play some panpipes. If we cooked it, we would have burnt it. That's certainly true. Yep. All right. So that thus concludes our third day of training, day 3, Sinter Day. And then you go back to your own place. Can we read one of the books while we're sitting down doing nothing in the dream? Unfortunately not now. So reading the book would count towards like doing something, like something other than training. So you would be training a particular skill. You would be leveling up that skill. You can read the book as flavour. Absolutely, you can read the book. But if you're asking, can you read the book towards towards gaining proficiency in herbalism or whatever? Unfortunately, that would not be the case. Can we use playing a warrior while playing the panpipes? They could be considered a weapon since they're so dangerous. Ew. Would practicing the tingles in our bedroom without anything to fear be too much of a handicap, or can we try and figure out how to access them without fear? Absolutely good idea there, Sparrow. So you, before sleeping, you wonder how much of a handicap, you think about how much of a handicap it would be if you were unable to access any of these abilities without fear. And so you try and focus on getting yourself into that state without fear. I'm going to make a wisdom check for you as you sit on the end of your bed trying to work out how to, that's cocked. I'm going to work out how to, 18, nice, plus 2 wisdom, dirty 20. You sit there on the end of your bed and you try and focus on what it feels like to get those pins and needles and tingles down your arms. And it takes only about half an hour or so of you focusing on this before you can kind of conjure them. You can feel the prickles up the top of your arm. It's not nearly as strong as when you're actually in peril. But you imagine yourself in peril. You imagine yourself in that situation of being in danger. And then you can kind of imagine and visualize these feelings down your arms. And it always starts in the shoulders and works its way down your upper arms. And you can feel them. You can't quite get them to reach your fingertips in the same way as when you're actually in peril. But you can definitely start to conjure them before actually putting yourself in danger. Suddenly your mind starts to wander towards the day you've spent with Sam and how it feels good to be wanted. It feels good to have someone flirting with you, even though there's many parts of Apis's mind that are doubtful as to Sam's motives. It still feels nice to be wanted, to be admired, to be enjoyed as a person. And that conjures a different sense of tingling. And you notice in that moment the similarity between it. And you wonder whether there's a connection between strong emotions, strong primal emotions, like fear or desire, and this fundamental building block magic of the universe. And you wonder whether that's more than just a coincidence, that it's the fundamental emotions of a living being and the fundamental magics of the universe may be more connected than you think. Can we rage into planar mode? We may well. If something gets you angry enough, you could potentially rage into planar mode as well. But it's been a long day, very exhausting day, and so Apis goes to sleep at this point. Almost feels like you're not dreaming. You're just enjoying the darkness. You're listening to the sounds of the tavern as you lay there in your bed with the shutters closed and your eyes closed and all the candles blown out. And you're not sure when the transition happens between sleeping and dreaming, but at some point it does. And you know so because you hear the words, "Use my techniques." And you open your eyes to see who's speaking. And there's no one around. Or rather, if there is, you can't see them, because you're in pitch black. "I have many gifts." The voice seems to just be omnipresent around you in the darkness. You realize in this moment, this dream is not like the others. This dream is more like the Merry Gentleman dreams, where you can speak, you can interact, you can move. What do you want to do? What do you want to say? Who are you? "I am many-faced." "Teach me." "Teach yourself." You look down to your hand goes to your bow over your shoulder, and it's not there. You are in your regular clothing. No equipment on you. "It's an honor to meet you." "Yes." "These gifts you have evil. I don't want to be evil." "There are evil ways to use my gifts. But gifts are neither evil nor good. There is just gifts." "I would like to use your gifts for good." "Then use them for good." And out of the darkness, the first instance of something that's not black emerges. It's just an ivory mask of a smirking face. And you're not sure, without any sense of scale, you're not sure if this thing is 6 feet away and the size of a human, or 100 feet away and the size of a house. It is just present, hanging in the darkness. It's smirking as this pale hand seems to materialize out of the shadows beneath it, reaches up and grabs the mask, and starts to remove it. Use my gifts. And as the mask starts to be removed, you start to see the side of a face beneath it that's dark-skinned and dark-eyed. And that's all you see before you wake up. What do you want to do on day 4, everybody? Spend the next day with Mel, perhaps? What's she been doing this whole time? She's been out hunting with you. She's been enjoying the forests. If ever I'm not mentioning Mel, she's just around. She's a companion animal, so she's just around when you need her. Intelligence check. Do we know if there's a god of many faces called that way or nicknamed that way? Let's make a religion check. 3 plus your intelligence of 3, that's a 6. Unfortunately, with a 6, you don't recall any many-faced god. You do recall that in Sally's apartment, in the secret room that they found after she fled the town, you found 2 different religious idols that she had. One of which was a skull with a hand grasping the front of the skull, and the eye was burning in a flame. You can't help but recognize the connection to that symbol, but there are some definite differences. The mask you've seen is definitely of a humanoid face with a smirk, not a skull, and the eyes are not flaming. You could certainly ask around, though. As part of your training, as part of this leveling up, you can definitely go and research whatever this thing is that's trying to tell you to use its abilities. Does Mel like Sam? Mel's neutral on Sam. Sam doesn't speak Sylvan, so everything that has been between Mel and Sam has been through you. We could ask the mages. Go to a library. We're in essentially a library. You could just ask the inn owner. She is an acolyte to Fifka, the god of knowledge, one of the gods of knowledge. Do we want yes or no? Thumbs up or down in the chat. Do you want to ask somebody about this masked individual? Yes. No. Yes. No. So most people saying yes. You go for breakfast in the inn. You ask Andrea, who is the acolyte to Fifka, one of the hunting gods, who runs this tattered page, this inn library. What exactly do you ask her? Do you ask her? Do you describe the whole situation and see what she knows, or do you ask her for books on gods or something? Do you just ask her, have you heard of the many-faced god or anything? I'm just going to put it to a 2-minute poll starting now. All right, with 70% of the vote, Apis wants to ask discreetly. We don't want to give away all of the information about what we've been dreaming about and the visuals of this creature and things, but we just want to ask about information on gods particularly. And so the Andrea gives us this book. She gives us this book on the gods, the basic gods of the world. And I'm just going to make an intelligence-based investigation check to see how well we skim this book and find the information that we are looking for. A 4. A 4 plus 3 is 7 on our investigation check. Do we want to use Inspiration or Lucky Horseshoe to reroll that? Alright, most people are saying yes, reroll it. So we are going to reroll with Horseshoe, Lucky Horseshoe. Brrrr! That is a 6. Definitively better. But still only a 9. Do we want to reroll with our inspiration for one last time? No? Keep our inspiration? Alright. So most people say no then. So with a 9 on our investigation check to find the information we're after, we are too distracted in too much stuff that could be related, but not enough to be related for sure. And so we don't feel confident knowing any more information than we started with. it's not it wasn't the greatest inspirational way to start the day. We've spent a few hours reading through this book and pretty much just got nothing. We skim read most of it. There was a couple of things that piqued our interest, but it ultimately didn't lead us anywhere. We've got a few more hours of the day. What do we want to practice? Do we want to practice trying to use his dark abilities that he was talking about? Do we want to try and practice the prickling sensation? Or do we want to practice our quick drawing some more? Or we can just ask the lady for help directly now that we've failed to look it up on our own. Stepping practice, prickling. All right, most people saying stepping practice. And because we don't have a lot of time, try and stay in town and see if we can summon this prickling situation. All right, wisdom check to see how well we can get these. 14 plus 2, 16. With a 16, it's going well. Our practice is going well, and we're managing to put ourselves into situations that aren't necessarily dangerous, but we can imagine if they were. And that imagination is with practice, we're able to resummon these sorts of prickling sensations as we're tying into that static electricity of the fundamentals of the magic of the universe. And then we've got to focus on an area of the world that we want to pull towards us. What does that even mean? We focus on an area that's like 10 feet in front of us on the cobblestone path, and we're on some smaller side street, and occasionally there's a horse trundles by on the main street, but we don't pay any mind to it. We're just focused on the cobblestones, and much as we do with Hunter's Mark, we think about the area of the world that is being displaced by what's going on in that area right now. We look at the small patches of moss between the cobblestones and where they're growing. We think about what temperature those stones must be, being in the shade of a building to our right as the sun is starting to set. They must be holding some of the warmth of the day from the sun being directly overhead a few hours ago, but they must be getting close to cold now. They probably haven't seen sun in a while, those stones, which means the temperature above the stones would be about the same. And there probably wouldn't be a very, very big breeze right now. You're putting yourself into the smells, the sounds, the sights, everything, the sensations of being in that space. And as you're focusing on all of these things, this tingling is growing. And rather than growing downwards towards your fingertips, like when you plane a warrior and you loosen, you amalgamate all of that power into an object that you then fire at an enemy. Instead, it seems to be prickling up towards your throat, and down into your pectorals and down your sides into the ribs. You can feel it, and occasionally you'll get excited at the fact that these prickle is going a different direction, and you'll lose concentration on it and lose it. So you focus again, you calm yourself, you get your mind back into a meditative place, and you focus again on that same place, the same temperature, sights and sounds and smells that you would feel if you were in that space. And you feel the prickling coming back, and you calm yourself, you know that it's coming, and you are excited that it's going somewhere, you're making progress. Before long you manage to feel that prickling sensation all over your entire upper torso. And then you focus on bringing that space towards yourself. And in that moment there seems to be a bursting, a popping of this energy within yourself, this prickling sensation that you've built up. It seems to pop from you, and out of your body itself, you are suddenly surrounded by a mist that swirls around you and dissipates in an instant. You haven't moved, but that was the first time that's happened for sure. And the act of it entirely surprised you. You try and conjure it again, but expecting what's going to happen, just it's thrown you off for the rest of the day. By now it's late though, and the sun has set, and you realise that you've probably been standing in this side street staring at these same cobblestones for over an hour. And so you start walking back towards your towards the tavern. You're still focused on what you were doing, though. You're focused on the experience that you just had and trying to get it back. And you're not paying the road as much attention as you possibly should. So you're quite startled when a voice says, "Hey, you!" And you sort of look to the side and you see that there are 3 large men in dark robes standing leaning against a wall. And one of them has a knife out and is sort of like picking his nails with the knife. And the one that called to you has started walking over towards you, and they're about 10 feet away. And he says, "It's not safe around these parts to be out at this time." I'm going to make a perception check for you. Ooh, 17. 17 plus your perception of 4, that's a 21. With the 21 perception check, the first thing that you notice is that there's 3 men and that they're very intimidating in their stature and body build. The second thing that you notice is that this instantly is in a dangerous situation for you, and you feel that sense of prickling overcoming your body without you even having to focus on it now that you're in a dangerous situation. But the third thing you notice is that just below a lapel that's kind of tucked out of the way, it's kind of been brought forwards against his neck to block the cold from him. And by bringing forward his lapel, you see that there's a small pin on his cloak that's no bigger than a thumbnail. And the pin is of an ivory smirking mask with a hand taking it away from her face. As he gets close enough to grab you, you quickly look over your shoulder. In an instant, you see an area of the street about 30 feet away, where it's right before a corner, and you know that if you can get to that space, you'll be able to get away from this. You'll be able to outrun him. You'll be able to dive behind something and lose him. You just need to get to that corner before he can. And just by thinking this escape plan, these prickles that have overcome your body from this danger you found yourself in explodes out of you in this violent mist storm. And then as soon as it's dispersed from yourself, the guy's gone, as are his friends, as are the walls that his friends were leaning against, even the barrels that were outside of the tavern that they were near. It's all gone, and you hear off to your side, "What the hell was... Hey, he's over there!" And you glance over to where he was, and standing 30 feet away, there are the 3 muggers that are standing by the side of the wall, one with a knife out. "How did he get him?" And you turn around and realise you're standing in the space that you wanted to get to. And you turn and bolt, and you run. And you run, and you run, and you can feel them coming, you can hear them coming. But you manage to lose them. You manage to lose them because as you duck into an alleyway to lose them, you are greeted with shadow. And you can see, almost like out of the corner of your eye, out of an open shuttered window, there is, in your peripheral, you see a person wearing a mask, an ivory mask, taking that mask off. And you don't even have time to look at it, but you suddenly realise, use my abilities. And you inhale as you run, and the dark shadows of the street around you cling to you. Your footsteps on the cobblestone deaden as soon as you've turned off the road, and you can hear behind you 3 running muggers run past the alleyway that you ducked down. And then you slump down against the wall, staring at your hands, which are now shrouded in darkness. And you can feel your heart beating, you can feel the breath catching, but you can barely even hear it. You look back to the window where this masked face was when you ran down this alleyway, and it's not there. There's no one there. You wait a few more moments before going to the end of your road, your alleyway, and looking out, and they've gone. And so you make your way slowly and quietly back towards the tattered page. And you go to sleep. For the first time in several days, you are dreamless. When you wake up, you have one more day of training to do before you feel like you can actually control these abilities. What do you want to practice? Just combination of all of it. I'd like to research. Library to quick search for gods that are followed by thieves. You head to the librarian again, Andrea, and you ask her in couched language, but with more to go on now. You ask her a sequence of do you know anything about gods that are worshipped by thieves? And probably quick as a flash, I will roll her for it because there's a chance of failure, but it's very low DC for her, being her. Given her background as an acolyte, she knows quite a lot about the religious pantheons. So because there was a chance of failure, I rolled for it, but I set the DC very low. The only chance that she could fail was a 1 or a 2, and she got a 2. So she says, I'm afraid I don't know about gods of thieves, but I do have a more advanced book rather than the one that I gave you, if you want to see it. And she goes and finds this book for you. She can't answer your question directly, but she eventually gets you this book, and you spend most of the morning reading through this book, and it's a lot denser than the one that she gave you yesterday. It's a lot wordier, and it was written by someone with much less of an understanding of keeping things light or connecting patterns, and it's much more just dense text. But eventually, you find reference to a god called Gamison. And Gamison is a god of the trickery domain, whose portfolio includes disguise, deception, thieves, cheaters, liars, fraudsters, charlatans, and so forth. He has no specific place of worship, but his divine symbol is a face with a right hand removing a mask. And you realize in that moment that you've been visited by Gamison, who has granted you your ability to pass without a trace. According to this author of this particular book that you're reading, necromancy is not in this particular god's domain or portfolio. Apis is very popular with the gods, and knowing that, realizing in that moment when Apis realizes, I'm very popular with the gods, I've now been visited or interacted with by at least 3 different gods. The god of healing, who gave me cure wounds, the god of hunting, who gave me hunter's mark, the god of trickery and deceit and disguise, who gave me pass without a trace. And you realise in that moment a comment that the merry gentleman made a couple of dreams ago, when you asked him briefly about this other figure, and he said, you're attracting quite a bit of attention. You have a lot of potential, and I can mentor you in it. And you realise the merry gentleman may have been talking about the gods. You are attracting quite a bit of attention from the gods. They're a god of the god of the trickery domain, and they are usually worshipped by thieves and charlatans and things. But that doesn't make them necessarily evil. They have gifts that they imbue on their followers that can be used in a number of ways, like Apis with pass without a trace. If you use it for evil deeds, then sure, you're evil, but it's really down to your worshippers to determine whether they are evil or not. So you've spent the morning researching this. You feel like you know who's giving you your pass without trace now. What do you want to spend the rest of the time doing? Practicing your extra attack, practicing your quick draw. Practice with Mel. All right. So we just visit other temples and see any of the gods that want to bestow gifts. Bestow your gifts to me, please. I'm a god's smorgasbord. Let's put all of it in practice. So we grab Mel, we head out into the forest, and we put all of it into practice, trying to bring those 3 things together. Trying to hunt, trying to use our stealth, using in that pass without trace ability, trying to use our survival to hunt, our athletics, our animal handling to control the animals, using our quick draw to fire on them, We eventually go home with a couple of conies in tow. And at the end of the day, to top it all off, I will say that you sell a rabbit to the butcher, who is willing to buy it for like 5 silver. So I'm going to give you 5 silver for that. And then to top it all off, you play some panpipes as well. And that ends your 5 days of downtime. You level up to level 5, increasing all of your proficiencies by 1, which is why in that last day we were training animal handling, athletics, perception, stealth, and survival, because all of those have gone up by 1. The brewer's tools, we didn't, I mean, technically we go up by 1 in that as well, but I couldn't find a way to shoehorn that into the day of practice. Our panpipes have gone up by 1, and we have learned Misty Step, Pass Without Trace, and now whenever we take the attack action on our turn, we can attack twice instead of once, because we've practiced our quick drawing. So we've leveled up to level 5. We wake up the next day on the 11th of Altebris, on Balm Day, on the 33rd day of our adventure so far, and I think that's where we're going to pick up next time. So thank you very much for joining me, everybody. I will see you next week. Bye.